The member for Mount Waverley.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. And I'm delighted to rise on the Summary Offences Amendment Decriminalisation of Public Drunkenness Bill 2020 because it's about time. I'd specifically like to thank the Attorney-General for bringing this bill to the House, but also and especially the former Attorney-General, Member for Altona, for the considerable work that they have both done. And I note that there are many voices here who've reiterated that this is about time, that 30 years since a Royal Commission is too long. I completely agree with that. I also understand, I guess, that a certain point of logic from the other side that says, well, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, so don't do anything. I understand where they're coming from, I just don't agree with it. I think if you cast your mind back to the Royal Commission that was instigated in 1987 by John Cain, then Aboriginal deaths in custody were already a problem. You don't have a Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody started in 1987 if it's not already a systemic problem that you have to address. So this problem goes back longer than 30 years. And I've heard from a couple of the other opposition speakers the sort of metaphor of cart before the horse. And again, I completely disagree. The cart is the issue of this being criminal. The cart is the placing in jail of people who are experiencing health issues and mental health issues and socio-economic issues and having struggles, whether it be homelessness or alcoholism. The cart is that. The horse is hopefully this bill that will drag us and push us to removing this offence, creating health responses that address the wider issues. The criminal offence that we're removing today doesn't fix the issues. And we know that because the issues are still there. And I think you can track back laws prohibiting public drunkenness to the English Parliament of 1606, when a law was passed criminalising and oppressing the odious and loathsome sin of drunkenness. And in Victoria, we can track these laws back to 1966. So they're much more of a moral stance on drinking than one of remedy. So I think we need to look at what we're really talking about with these laws. And it is, too many times, it is to put the problem out of sight. And these laws affect people in our society who need help, not a jail cell. Now, we've heard some examples from other members that a lot of people who come into contact with these laws, a lot of the majority of them only experience it once. Well, I would say if they only experience it once, then they don't need to be in a jail cell, but there are other ways for this. I think we're looking at a health-first response. And this goes back to the last 12 months. If we've learned nothing from the last 12 months of the coronavirus pandemic, is that health first was the right choice. And again, health first in this instance. Now, I go back to 1987 when the Royal Commission was commenced. I was 18 years old. I think other members have stated, you go out, you have a few drinks. That is still legal, I presume, although some of I think the lead speaker seemed to have some sort of judgment on having a couple of drinks, but pretty sure it's still legal. People go out, they drink too much. Now, if this law was applied evenly and all the time, then the amounts of people being picked up would be monumental. It would be impossible. The police couldn't literally pick up every person who is intoxicated in public. And no one would expect them to. So if they're not doing it based on just that fact, then logically, what are we doing it for? Now, as I said, I have not been picked up for this offence myself, and you know, I'm sure I've been out of a pub when I've probably had one too many of these, you know, back in the day, in the old days, and they've said, right, time to go, Matt, off you go. And I've gone home and got the cab and we're all fine, right? No one arrests you for that. Our liquor licensing laws ask our landlords to tell people who've had that one too many, I'm not going to serve you anymore, it's time to go. Well, by that definition, once they leave the pub, they're drunk in a public place. I spoke to someone else who does have experience with these sort of laws. And it's a good friend of mine by the name of Dave Arden, who is a proud First Nations man. And I said to him, I said, look, Dave, we've got this bill coming up. We're going to decriminalise public drunkenness. You know, does that mean anything to you? And he said, well, yeah. He said, yeah, it does. He said, I grew up in Fitzroy, and that was part of the life. The whole Charcoal Lane story. That was his upbringing. He said, my father, he drank. Police would come, they would pick people up for drinking. And what does that mean? I have 3 kids of my own. Dave has his kids, he's got grandkids. You start to think about the imbalance of how some of these laws are applied. And I imagine myself speaking to one of my kids and trying to explain to them that they have to be cleverer, they have to be better behaved, they have to work harder, they have to do all these things harder because the odds are stacked against them. And they're only stacked against them because they look different from their neighbour. Now, when you put it that way, we'll think, well, that is not how the world should be, and that's not how we want Victoria to be, and that's not how Victoria is. But these laws still reinforce that. So to argue that we should keep them until we know what the perfect response is just reinforces that inequity. There is plenty of time in the 2 years that this bill puts forward to get this health response worked out. Police will be consulted, first responders, Indigenous stakeholders, other stakeholders. I have no doubt that by the time this bill comes into force in 22, that there will be responses. Now, will they be perfect? I don't imagine anything's perfect, but it will be an appropriate start, and we'll continue to work on it, like we do with all social values, like all social issues. And this bill isn't going to fix the problem of alcoholism, and it isn't going to fix the problem of social disadvantage. But it is a step in the direction to doing those things. And it's a long overdue step, and so I'm very, very proud to be here today. I hope that those who are affected by these laws, and I go to the Ms. Day and her family, you know, we know her name. And part of the reason we know her name is because of her family and the efforts they put in to make sure her name is not forgotten and her plight is not forgotten. But how many other names do we not know? How many other names will we never know? I hope this bill puts us closer to a society where there are no more names that we don't know, because it's not happening. And by making responses to alcoholism in public a health response, we get closer to that. And I think that is what we are here for, is to get ourselves closer to that society that we want. and I commend the bill to the House.